You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free biweekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan.
I hope everybody enjoyed the holidays, had a great new year, and back and ready to get back in the swing of things.
Exactly. I hope you had a great holiday break. Merry Christmas, and looking forward to the new year. And so we're gonna kick off 2022. I can't believe I'm saying that.
I know.
With a favorite topic of mine, works with QuickBooks. It's a phrase that I've heard people say. Apps, they say they work with QuickBooks, but there's always the devil's in the details, and that's what we're gonna talk about. And it's not like we have a devil here today, but we're going to be talking about this phrase of works with QuickBooks, and talking about the good, the bad, the ugly of accounting integrations with our guest Bookkeep today. Jason, CEO of Bookkeep, is going to be joining us here today. So we'll go ahead and get started. Michelle, who are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Long, CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success, contract trainer for Intuit for a long time, and really enjoy that. Author of several different books. Check them out if you're interested. And there's the link to our Facebook group, which continues to grow rapidly. It is very active, so you guys can join us there after the fact to continue the discussion.
My name is Dan DeLong, your co-host today, also a co-host of Workshop Wednesdays, where I was thinking tomorrow we'll be talking about workers' comp. So quite a flux from one topic to another. So we'll definitely be shifting gears tomorrow on the Workshop Wednesday at Schoolofbookkeeping.com. Also doing the tech editing for the QBO for Dummies book series. So Jason, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about it. It's quite a list of things we got going on here. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Jason Richelson. I'm the CEO and founder of bookkeep.com. And I've been in accounting, software, and automation for my entire career. I worked at Pricewaterhouse out of college. I doing portfolio management, which is accounting software. I started a payments company called Internet Cash back in the 1999 go-go days. And then when that all blew up, I worked on Wall Street, where I also built accounting software and did some trading. And then I went into retail. So I actually still own one wine store. I just sold my other wine store in Manhattan to the guy who's been managing it for many years. I used to also have a grocery store and called the Green Grape. And that led into me starting a company called ShopKeep, which is a point of sale company. And it was the first iPad point of sale company, cloud-based iPad point of sale. That then was recently sold actually to Lightspeed. And over the last couple of years, I've been doing accounting for my businesses. And that has kind of led into what we do now at Bookkeep, which we'll get into some more later.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really awesome about your story, Jason, is that you found a problem and decided to become your own solution. And that speaks volumes for what we're going to be talking about here today.
Yep.
Is that when you really understand what the problem really is, getting to the solution is easier and more thorough, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And one of the things that I did with ShopKeep was I was a retailer. I built the point of sale software for my business because I wanted to be able to get access to data remotely. And most point of sale systems were pretty old school, running on Windows, which was a lot of maintenance. Here at Bookkeep, it's something very similar. We actually have a client accounting services team of 3 full-time accountants and 50 bookkeeping clients. And that is where the Bookkeep software has grown out of. And I still work every day with that team, understanding the issues that bookkeepers and accountants go through every day, mostly bank feeds, email or connections, logins, a lot of misery around that we're trying to solve. But absolutely, we use Bookkeep software with our client accounting services team. And so we really do understand what bookkeepers and accountants deal with every day.
Awesome. So a little bit of the housekeeping here. Currently, we don't offer CPA for the QB Power Hour webinars, sad to say, but we are looking into ways to be able to bring that back to the fold, but we'll keep you updated on that. If you have specific questions about the topics that we're talking about here today, go ahead and put those in the Q&A. We do have some extra folks from the Bookkeep team to be able to answer some of the direct questions about some of the things that we might be talking about here today. If you have just regular chat comments, go ahead and enter those in the chat. We will actually have a poll question that will ask you to put something in the chat, because it's more of a free form type of question. So that's for the chat. And then we also have every webinar, we always have the question, where are the handouts, right? The handouts are on the QB Power Hour website. We have the QB resources, or qbpowerhour.com/resources site, which has all of the handouts and PDFs of every webinar, as well as the blog articles and webinar archives as well. So a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. We'll talk in general about finding apps that work with QuickBooks Online and desktop. How do you go about finding those things, as well as the settings, because as we'll talk about with Jason, sometimes those settings need to be updated and you need to know where to go to find those settings. So some of them are uniform, and as we'll talk, they're not uniform between one app to another. And then we'll talk about why some apps are bad, and talk a little bit about the worst of the worst. But we'll also talk about some of the best, and then we'll transition into what Bookkeep is and how Bookkeep can help with managing some of these app quagmires that we end up having with our clients. So the first question, poll question that we'll start off with today is, what version of QuickBooks are you using mostly for in your firm or your practice or your personal QuickBooks? Because Bookkeep itself, Jason, right? It's designed specifically for QuickBooks Online, or do you have a desktop?
We actually are agnostic, but we don't have a desktop integration. But we do QuickBooks Online, Xero, and NetSuite and Intact are in a sort of a preview mode this year now. So and I'll show it later in the webinar, but our system is designed to really work with any accounting platform, except desktop, unfortunately, because desktop is hard to automate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we are looking into it right now.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I want to thank you for joining us today and bringing up this topic, because I think it's a great topic. A lot of our accountants and bookkeepers, the clients are wanting to do these third-party integrations and connect with these apps and everything. But, accountants and bookkeepers aren't trained on the technical side. And when you start doing these integrations and things don't go as planned, sometimes that's kind of out of our skill set and everything. And so I love what you all do and offer, and how you simplify and eliminate some of those headaches for us and stuff. So I think it's a great topic, very timely here at the beginning of the year. Is a perfect opportunity for people to be implementing, new apps or changing some of the setups that they have. So very glad to have you here and love the topic.
Happy to be here. And I know it really is becoming, you have to be an app integrator. Like even if you're a single accountant, it's kind of like when I was at Price Waterhouse, like I worked on the software services side, which basically did software integrations, for their accounting clients. And as a QuickBooks ProAdvisor, a single accountant now, you basically have to do that for your small business clients too. There's so many apps that they're using that, one of the reasons Bookkeep started with our software is that your clients don't tell you or don't care that you're adding a new app, that they don't care about you when they add a new app to their sales channels. You're the last to know. You see it in the bank feed, right? And so our goal is really to be there and be able to capture that data for you. Eventually, we'll be able to tell you that, hey, they just added this new app, and we can automate that for you, and we can turn it on for you. We're not totally there yet, but we're getting into that direction. So we're there to support that need.
So let's talk a little bit about ways apps work with QuickBooks. Because there's you could probably Jason, you could probably tell us a little bit more about the process that an app company goes through to get to work with QuickBooks. But they're just because you are an app and you say you work with QuickBooks doesn't mean that you're vetted right to do so. I saw that a lot when I worked at Intuit, and some banks avoided setting things up the way that Intuit wanted them to go into the bank feed, so they would just create an IIF file that would allow you to import, but that then superseded the whole bank feed center. But the way that an app company or development company becomes an app that works with QuickBooks, they have to start by going to the Intuit Developer Network and downloading an SDK that works with the API. Could you explain a little bit what those that means, an SDK and an API?
Well, in general, I mean, basically it's not even an SDK anymore. That would be something you would download, but really you work, you write to their API, which the application programmer interface is what an API stands for. Basically, they give you the ability to create records, delete records, change records, view information out of QuickBooks. And that's what we work with. You can't just show up in the App Store, though. They do actually do an approval process to make sure your app does what it says it's going to do. They actually vet your security-wise. Like, we've gone through their bank level security review where they actually scan our platform to make sure that we have security on our platform. So there is an approval process. Anyone can build an app in the QuickBooks App Store, and that's the problem. And I think Intuit is finding that there's a lot of junk in their app store, which is causing a lot of people to be frustrated when they download and use an app and it doesn't work well. So I think I have heard some rumblings that they're trying to get a little more rigid about their approval process, which is a good thing. I mean, the app should work. They should understand what accountants need when they build these apps.
So typically, how long after you've created your app and submitted it for the approval process, how long does that approval process actually take?
It's pretty fast with QuickBooks. It can be a month or less. The process. It's not terribly long. You're
sitting there waiting for the gold star or the seal of approval before you can actually advertise, right? Or is that not the case?
Well, there's two different things. If it's in the App Store, that has to be approved. You can still actually build an app. So if you wanted to build an app for a client, custom, it doesn't have to go into the App Store, so it doesn't need approval. You can actually launch it and get access to the data. If you are able to manage an engineer, which is not an easy thing to do, but just finding an engineer on Upwork to build you something might seem easy. Upwork wants to make you think it's easy, but managing an engineer, getting the engineer to actually do what you verbalize to them is a very difficult thing to do. As I've learned from writing, I write my own software now, but I've learned how to write software in the last year and a half, actually, through COVID, so that I can better work with our engineers. It's not easy.
And then finally, the gold standard is being listed on the App Store, being able to be found by anyone that happens to be using the software. Interesting fun fact, Intuit owns the domain apps.com, which was even before anything dealing with the iPhone. I think they bought it some 17 years ago. A small oversight by Apple. But you can get to the App Store by just going to apps.com, or you can find the apps inside of QuickBooks Online, which is typically the best place to find those, because then you can find them for yourself, for your firm, or for your clients. If you're using QBOA, you'll see this find. You go to the apps in the client dashboard. You can go to find apps. You'll see the client apps as well as the firm apps, as long as you're the master administrator. finding apps for desktop is desktop.apps.com. So you can go to desktop.apps.com and find the ones that are specifically written for desktop software.
And
then there's another one for point of sale.
Right.
What were you going to say, Jason?
I would say, look at, when you definitely look at the reviews, and a lot of apps use, there's a bunch of providers that will generate reviews for you. You can usually tell because they're like a single line and they all pretty much sound the same. But, I try to respond to clients' reviews in QuickBooks or on Shopify. We respond if they make a review. Our reviews are real reviews, and you can usually tell by looking at the reviews if people are really using the app, or and it is important to. I would say it's not the quantity of the reviews, but actual what they write that you should really look at, because so many apps do use these services that are marketed to us all the time. Hey, we can get you hundreds of reviews. And I'm like,
right.
I just want real reviews. I don't want hundreds of reviews. So you always have to look at the app reviews to kind of get a feel for, is this a real app or real people using it?
And Jason, that's such a good point. And I would add to that too, look at the recent reviews, because these apps are updating all the time, just like QuickBooks is updating all the time. So when you're looking at the reviews, if you're looking at something that's a year old, they may have already addressed any kind of concern or issue that they had a year ago. So I agree with you about looking at the reviews and look at the recent ones. I would add to that.
And reach out to support and see if they're really there. I mean, our support will respond to you right away. And you definitely want support if you want to know it's there, if it's something you're going to rely on over a long period of time.
One more thing I might add too, we talk about going to apps.com or desktop.apps.com, and that's a great place to go. But a lot of times, some of our accountants and bookkeepers and ProAdvisors, a lot of times people just go to Google and will Google for an app to work with QuickBooks. So if you find an app that's not listed in one of the app stores, you need to do a lot more research and testing on that, because Intuit, like Jason was talking about, Intuit does the testing and the vetting as far as security and all that stuff for them to be listed in the app store. So there's some apps that are out. You'll find them on Google. For example, Expensify. For a number of years, Expensify was not in the app store because they didn't want to comply with Intuit's rules and recommendations. It didn't mean there was anything wrong with the app. But if you are going to be recommending that for clients, you have to do more work on your own vetting of it. So just keep that in mind.
Good point, Michelle. So in QBO, if you want to get to the app settings, well, that depends, right? So like you can go into the client overview, and you can see what apps are connected just by clicking on the overview section on the left side. You can see what apps are connected. But I have the same client here. When you go into the app section on the QBOA dashboard, I would only be able to get to Rewind in this case, because that's the one that I had set up. So you'll only be able to see the settings for the ones that you yourself connected, or at least have been given access to be able to access those apps. And then you'll get the launch button. You'll be able to go to the app from there, and then go forward from there. Now, when you're dealing with desktop's another animal altogether, because in order for QuickBooks to accept any third-party integrations, it has to have been sent a certificate, and you have to acknowledge that. And there, once it's been accepted, there's an integrated applications sections under preferences, and as long as you're the admin or have the ability to get to that preference, and of course single user mode, to be able to make any settings setting changes inside of QuickBooks Desktop. But here you can see you can grant access to allow the app to access it, or change the properties to allow it to log in automatically with QuickBooks Desktop is closed. But that's where you would go to change the settings inside of those for those apps. So we'll now have the second one. Well, how many apps does your average client use? And Jason wanted to put a special designation about what is an app when you're thinking about the number of apps that your client uses, not just with QuickBooks, right? You're thinking just in what do they use to run their business?
Exactly. Yeah. So like, do they use Uber Eats? Do they use Gusto's, Gusto for payroll? Do they use When I Work for time clock? Do they use, there's a bunch of apps that customers use that have effect on on accounting. So and not all of them integrate with QuickBooks.
Exactly. So we're thinking in terms of just in general, all of the apps that they would use to run their business, not that wouldn't necessarily need to feed into QuickBooks, but just what do they use? What would you say you use in your business, Jason?
Well, for the wine store, it's still pretty well. Let's take the wine store in New York. So they use Square, Uber Eats for orders. They also use delivery.com for orders, and I think also Grubhub Seamless. So that's 3 sales channels outside of Square. So including Square, it's 4 sales channels, 4 deposits in the bank account, 4 systems that you need to track sales from. Some systems do post orders through the point of sale. A restaurant or wine store would be similar. So some of those tools do, but you don't get the proper accounting data. So even if Square is getting the orders from Grubhub so that you can fulfill them, if it's a restaurant or a wine store, they're not getting the fees. They might not be getting the correct prices, and that can cause your books to be off because your deposits won't reconcile necessarily to the sales that Square says. So it can get kind of complicated, and that's one of the problems we're trying to solve with Bookkeep.
Yeah, I have a client that he's like, I have 3 sales channels: Amazon, eBay, and Shopify. Mm-hmm. And then, we're doing his books, and he's like, and I'm like, well, what's this Etsy and Poshmark? He's like, right. Oh yeah, that's that too,
Yeah, exactly.
And, in addition to that, they might be using a CRM, and they might have email or Slack or something that they're integrating with the system as well. Something for, client refunds or complaints, or a shipping app, or, exactly. a few years ago, Intuit did a study asking small businesses how many apps they use, surrounding their business, including things like email and calendar and things like that. And it was actually like 18. And I was shocked, because, Jason, you mentioned a lot of those around the sales channel and the accounting side, but then there's so much more than that. And I actually went through on my phone and tablet and added up how many apps that I kind of use on a regular basis. And I was shocked how many it really is. So it does quickly become a mess and cumbersome.
Yeah, it really does. And it's getting even worse. And one of the things that I actually call accountants and bookkeepers the voiceless group here. You really have no say in the fact of the matter that Uber Eats, your client's starting to use Uber Eats, and Uber Eats has very poor reporting. It's very, very hard to get to. So all you see is the bank feed, and all you see is the deposit from Uber Eats, which, by the way, is net of fees, net of commissions, net of including sales tax, or maybe not, depending on if they're paying it for you. There's a lot of complexity now in these deposits that unless you can get the full reporting, which is very hard to get from Uber Eats as an example, it's just very hard to do their books properly.
And they can't then make decisions off of that because they can't categorize, the commissions versus the marketing fees versus whatever the fees. It's just this nebulous glob of money that shows up into their bank account.
Well, and the other thing that I have a real big problem with, if they can't truly identify all their fees and everything, how do they really know, is doing Uber Eats even profitable for them? How does Uber Eats profitability compare to Grubhub profitability, compared to DoorDash profitability? And, so if you can't get that underlying info, if you're just getting a net deposit, you're missing out on so much data, and they may be doing a sales channel that's not profitable for them. You might be selling lots, but if you're not making money on it, it doesn't help.
There's a question in the chat too about, 2 things on that point. I do believe, we can't get data from Uber Eats. We can't really get data from Grubhub. And that's one of the things that I'm working on, some ways that we can work together as an industry to be able to go together and say, hey, Uber Eats, just, when you create these tools, you have to think about the accountants, because no one's thinking about the accountants. And we'll get into that a little bit in this presentation. One question in the chat was, yes, sales channels and sales channels and payment methods do overlap. So if you have a client that's using Amazon Seller and Shopify, they may be pulling the Amazon Seller orders into Shopify. And you need to be able to ignore or include certain orders in order to match to the deposits. PayPal is also, of course, one of the problems. If you're using the PayPal Connect app, it will not allow you to ignore any of the transactions. So you would then have to ignore them from your Shopify connection if you don't want duplication. And I can explain that later when we show what we do here.
Yeah, so I stopped sharing. So we'll pass the baton over to you, Jason. Now you did this presentation at Scaling New Heights. So if you see the hashtag Scaling New Heights 21, that will show. I mean, this was something that you did as a breakfast, right? So now you don't have to go to breakfast in order to see what Jason was talking about at Scaling New Heights.
So we'll do present. All right, we'll try this. We'll just go through this. So why are app integrations? So basically, accounting integrations, in my experience and probably your experience as well, is they're not really that great. Everyone says, that's what the title of this talk is like, it integrates with QuickBooks. Yeah, right. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to use it. And a lot of software developers build that QuickBooks integration to check the box and say, hey, yeah, of course we're integrated with QuickBooks, but the accountant ends up not using it because it's so difficult to use. And the reason for that is usually software engineers don't understand accounting concepts. They might understand transactions, they understand fees and numbers, but what they don't often understand is how to do proper summary data, how to do accrual accounting, which is often how you want to post entries when you're dealing with a huge amount of data, a huge amount of transactions, I mean. Integrating to QuickBooks is actually not that easy to do. It is really complicated. And then maintaining that connectivity to QuickBooks and dealing with all the error messages. Often an app, like take Uber Eats as an example. Maybe and I don't know anyone in Uber Eats, but maybe they didn't want to bother because their engineering team is like, I'm not dealing with that. It's just like, it's too much. We don't have a team that can handle this. We don't want to deal with the integration to QuickBooks. And again, it's like, well, and some clients are using Xero and some are using NetSuite. So what, we're going to build 5 integrations and have to manage all those. So often, because it's not easy to do, they don't do it. What we mentioned before, sales platforms, like, a lot of these restaurant apps for sure. E-commerce is a lot better. They have APIs and they do think about the accounting aspects, but a lot of sales platforms don't consider the accountants to be their customer. You don't buy their software, you don't make the decisions, you're not the decision maker. They don't think about you when it comes time to building proper reports. We even actually have integrations to some platforms in the cannabis space, and they don't even have reports. They don't even have summary reports a lot. Sometimes it's just transactions. If you look at if you look at like Squarespace as an example, they don't do any summary reports. It's just, here's a list, here's a download of your transactions, and that just adds up and compounds, especially since everything is moving to e-commerce. You as an accountant bookkeeper are going to have to deal with a lot of transactions, and transactions don't work if it's a really busy customer. Your clients also think it's your problem, not theirs. I'm using this app, just deal with it. Go here, I'll give you a login. You can share my login, and then they change their password and they think it's your problem. And that's why their books don't get closed on time or accurately. And as I mentioned before, accountants and bookkeepers, like, where are you going to complain to? Like, Uber Eats doesn't have an integration. It really frustrates me. I can't even get anyone there to talk to me. So I'm trying to get, hopefully I can get all the bookkeepers and accountants in this country to, we can all band together and I can go to Uber Eats. We're already trying to do it with one large client who uses DoorDash. We're going together to DoorDash to try and say, guys, let us help build this integration for accountants because they need it. And I have some other ideas that we're trying to do there, but this is kind of the reason. Is a lot. There's multiple reasons that integrations end up being so poor. So what I mean by bad is usually dumping sales receipt transactions, just dumping transactions. You connect Square, Square's original integration to QuickBooks that was built with Square and QuickBooks together. All it did was dump transactions. So you connect, a lot of people, even when they connect to Bookkeep, they're like, I don't want to connect Bookkeep until I know what you're going to do, because they've been burned by apps that just dump transactions into QuickBooks. That's bad. Can't find the settings. I'm going to show you that in Gusto. I was just playing with it beforehand. Can't find the settings. It's very hard to find. Let's see. Why is this? Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Settings make no sense. Hard to manipulate. Again, because often the product managers at these software firms, their users are not accountants. Their users are the people who are making sales. Their users are the people building the websites that make sales, or building the app so that customers order from your store for restaurant. They don't think about the accountants. A big pet peeve of mine, and I'm sure, without realizing it, consciously, you see it yourself. If you're posting something to QuickBooks, show me where you posted it. Give me a link so I can go and see in QuickBooks what just posted. Nobody does that. I mean, it seems like the simplest thing to me, but most apps don't do that. Having a pretty simple log of what was created, or the ability to have an audit log and see updates as well as creations of entries into accounting. Often apps don't have that. Duplicating entries because they're not using duplication protection. That's a big no-no. Error messages, and again, like QuickBooks Zero, the error message handling is pretty complex. And most app developers, once they build that QuickBooks integration, they're like, hey, it's done. I don't want to work on this anymore. And so when customers are like, hey, there's some weird error, they don't even care to help you with it.
Jason, would you say that it's is it because it's just harder to program that they don't go that extra mile, or is it because the damage control seems like a big thing, like being able to undo or roll back or link to or update, because when things don't go right, then you've got to peel back the layers of the onion, and usually there's some tears involved.
Exactly. It really just comes down to priorities. They don't necessarily want to prioritize an engineer or a product person to be on top of the QuickBooks integration, unless it's really an app for accountants. Like payroll apps, of course, are a little better than most, even though I'm going to show you some that are difficult. But like Square doesn't care about the accountants. Square is becoming a bank now, and they now have savings accounts. They now have a debit card, and all of that information is unavailable in their own integration, and they don't even make it available in their API. So I can't even get access to the data. Hopefully we're working with them to hopefully we'll get early access to that. But really it comes down to priorities. Their priorities is always selling more, and it's never keeping track, never helping the accountants deal with the end results. So let's just take a look at some of the worst. I don't want to say worst, but these are just some frustrating ones. So Square, as probably a lot of people on here have seen, their original integration would dump transactions. Now it's a lot better. They've updated it in the last month or two. It will actually do summaries, and it will actually give you a heads up that, hey, how many days do you want? And by the way, when I say litter with transactions, Square will post a sales receipt for one order and then the payment against it for that order. And then it will also post the deposit. So you could literally have hundreds, if not thousands, of entries for a single day in a regular business. That doing 100 sales a day. If it's a grocery store, it could be thousands. But retail, a couple hundred, or up to 100 a day, times two, and then the deposit. And if you decide you don't like it, you got a lot of cleanup to do. There's no settings in the Square app to manage the integration. I'm going to show you in a second that there's no settings in QuickBooks either. I was just playing with it, and I'm going to show it to you. If you call Square, they will say, call QuickBooks. Yep. If you call QuickBooks,
a lot of finger pointing when it comes
Square.
to support between the two.
Exactly. And that's why we exist. Bookkeep is in the middle. If you call us and say, I can't get my data from Square, we will be able to see what's going on the Square side. If you call us and say the posting didn't work to QuickBooks, we will look on the QuickBooks side. But we can understand and troubleshoot the issues because, like the accountant, we're the middleman too, and we understand the technology. New integrations with summaries. So this is basically this is the new integration that came out in the last 2 months. It does allow you to summarize now instead of posting every transaction, which is a good thing, but it summarizes it by payment type. This is not accrual accounting. My history in retail and accounting going back 20 years now, when you post a summary, a Z report, you post a summary of the full day with all sales, all sales, discounts, returns, sales tax against all your payment types. And then when the payment types hit your bank account, then you reconcile those. With Square, it's basically posting by payment type into separate journal entries or sales receipts, which is just a little bit messy to deal with if you're dealing with multiple payment types, if you're bringing orders through. And so that is not necessarily the right way to do it. And I don't need to go too much history there. No historic data loads. I just went through it. I'm going to show you in a second here. PayPal. The PayPal Connect app.
Somebody just put in the chat, PayPal makes me nuts. Any ideas for that?
Yeah.
It's like they knew the next slide was coming.
We have an integration to PayPal. It does summaries where summaries are important. It does transactions for expenses. And it works a lot better than the PayPal Connect app because it's done based on what accountants want. So if you're using the PayPal Connect app, it's built into that PayPal built into it. Every single transaction will sync. It looks like the bank feed. You cannot ignore transactions. So if you're using us or another app to pull your Shopify sales in, you're going to get the Shopify sales that were transacted with PayPal as the payment method. And you're also going to get them from PayPal individually. And you can't ignore them from PayPal. So if you're using Bookkeep, you can't use the PayPal Connect app. If you're using, even A2X, which is another app that does Shopify, you can't use the PayPal Connect app. I think you can ignore with A2X PayPal transactions. But the PayPal app also, because there's so many transactions potentially involved with PayPal, it can be a real mess. Even PayPal should be summarized. Posting sales receipts against the PayPal, it's basically two entries. It's really, really hard to reconcile against their PayPal bank. It's very hard to understand how they're posting those. Right. And you still have to manually do something here. You can't set, unless I'm mistaken, you can't set rules on the PayPal Connect app. So remember my mapping for this transaction and always post it that way. You still have to go in and manually put them in. And then I'm going to show you some of these in a second. And then Gusto and JustWorks are payroll. Updating settings is hard to find. That's an example. Dropdown's not searchable. If you're doing mapping, you want to be able to search your GL accounts by name. Like you should be able to, type in and it should fast filter for you. No way to find posts from Gusto to QBO. I'm going to show you that. No way to adjust postings. Gusto does accrual entries, JustWorks doesn't. And here's just that picture there of that example. So I want to go to real quick now and show you some of these examples. Here in Gusto, actually, I'll show you this here, then I'll jump to a real live demo. But here in JustWorks, for example, let's look at the mapping first, right? You have sub-accounts. When you have sub-accounts of GL accounts, you want to understand that they're sub-accounts of GL accounts. Here, it's not very clear what's going on. These are sub-accounts here, but I don't see the breakdown of that, and I can't fast filter in search here. In addition, here's another example. They sent it on 10/10. Okay, great. Where's the journal entry? Why can't you show me a link to the journal entry?
Was sent.
Yeah. And what happens when I click this button? Is it going to send it again? Is it going to update it? And I'll tell you the answer to that. It's going to send it again. You're going to get duplicates. That's JustWorks. I just happen to use them for payroll. Same with Gusto. I was actually trying to find this in the live and I couldn't even find it. Here it says ready to sync and click the button sync. It will actually then refresh. I don't know if my screen will show it. It won't, but and show you that it was posted. But again, no link to what was posted, no understanding of what if I click this again, what's going to happen. And then from here, it's like, I want to change my mapping. Where do I go? They don't have a link back to that. Like they just don't, it's always sort of an afterthought because it's a very specialized thing what accountants do. But a lot of these apps still, Gusto is not the worst. They have a couple apps and they obviously focus on accountants. So they're getting better. But So let me just show you, before we go to that, that was that JustWorks thing. Is it going to take me to the screen that I want? Yeah, the mapping screen. I mean, just as an example, I've been trying to post some entries and it's telling me I have an error. It's not telling me what the error is. It says one of my mappings is wrong. I don't understand from the screen what mapping is wrong. There is no examples. Maybe this one isn't mapped, but I did find another one. Like, I don't use that one. So it looks to me like everything's mapped.
We're looking for red here, and
right. No, there's no red. Exactly. And when I go and post, I won't show you that because then I'll show you my payrolls, but it just gives me an error that says there's a mapping issue. So then I come here and I'm like, what? Where's my mapping issue? So that's one example. And then Gusto here, let's see, how do I make that go away? Is somewhat similar. Here's my, I love that they do actually do accrual entry of your payroll, because as a retailer, I want my payroll to line up with my sales. I don't want it to be on the check date, or debit date. Anyway, so that is a nice feature. But again, from here, I can't even find where my payroll, I don't even see where to post my payroll history. Like, this is I don't use this anymore, but like, even if I come in here, I can't even find, where is this posted to QuickBooks? I can't even find it. Again, I don't use this every day, but if you think about this compound, if they're using 7 or 8 different apps, like, I got to go to these different apps and know where all the settings are. And that is a lot of work for our clients. So obviously one of the things that you want to do is standardize on apps. And our client accounting services team is going to start standardizing on the apps that we use with clients so that we know which apps. And of course, we're going to pull them all into Bookkeep. But before we get to a demo of Bookkeep, let's do the next poll question.
I've been sharing the second poll all this time because I've been so riveted by what you've been saying. So what interaction or what integrations have you had the most challenges with? Right. So of course we threw PayPal under the bus there. And they're just their own right. animal, because they're a payment method, and then they could go across multiple sales channels, and then you could use it to buy expenses. So it's like a nor'easter.
They have a debit card. Yes, and by the way, just to give a heads up, Square is becoming the same thing. Square has savings accounts. They now have the debit card, and they also have loans. Square is becoming a bank without a bank feed. So PayPal is a bank without a proper bank feed. Stripe is becoming the same, and you'll see a lot of apps. The real big ones will try to do this. Not all of them will, but you need a bank feed if you're going to be a bank, and a lot of them don't do that. None of them do that. Sorry.
Jason, I'm really glad you're here to share Bookkeep with people and let them know how it works, because now more than ever, over the last 2 years, so many of our clients have added these third-party apps because they've started selling online. And so now a lot of our accountants and bookkeepers are seeing the ramifications of that and the mess of that. And, they're trying to figure out how to deal with it and stuff. So, we've been talking about all these problems that they're encountering. I can't wait for you to share some solutions for people. Somebody had said, because Don Bobbitt said it makes you not want to use apps at all. And I said, no, you just have to use the right apps. And I think that's the key here. All apps themselves are not bad. It's just you have to choose the right app. So I'm glad you're here to help us with that.
Totally. And sometimes you have to become, that's what we're trying to do with our client accounting services team. But I get the pushback, and I understand the pushback. I'm like, listen, this client cannot use ADP. We are not going to use ADP for this client. And they're like, Jason, I can't tell them that. You got to tell them that. I can't tell them that. I'm like, well, it's taking us 6 hours to do their payroll and get it posted. We're just not going to do it. And I know it's very hard, but we're going to switch them to Gusto probably, or maybe to I forget the other one, but that has a proper integration. ADP doesn't have a proper QuickBooks integration. So it requires a huge amount of report downloads to do the journal entries. So you do have to kind of standardize. To some extent, your clients aren't will probably welcome a recommendation. Hey, we use Gusto for payroll. I'm going to switch you over. It's going to be a lot easier and better. And they might welcome those recommendations from you. But in the long run, you're going to have to do that. Because otherwise your life is, you won't be able to scale, basically. You won't be able to add more clients, get more profitable if you don't have automation, because there's just going to be so many sales channels and payment methods that clients are going to use. So, okay, others in the chat, I don't know, where'd the chat go on my screen?
There's a lot of Venmo is another, PayPal-esque, type of payment method.
And Venmo is now, PayPal and Venmo are now accepted at CVS, which means you're going to have small businesses that are going to be accepting them as payments. When you accept, and one interesting thing is, even if you accept Square Cash at the register, which one interesting thing that's happening is a lot of these apps are, I call it checkout hijacking. I don't, that's not an official term, but like, a lot of these apps like Square and Shopify are allowing the customers to choose how they pay without the merchant having anything to do with it. So Shopify now offers Shopify installments. When the customer sees, oh, I can pay with an installment, the merchant has no say in that matter. But what happens is the merchant's going to get a second deposit. They're going to get 2 deposits on that day if they decide to use Shopify installments. And so this is happening a lot, and we do handle these situations and help you properly book them, as well as alert you to the fact that they're happening. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. Let's get some Bookkeep. Yeah, let's go into the demo now.
What makes up a good integration?
Right.
Here.
Let's do that real quick. Yeah, a good integration is, in my mind, it's easy and fast to connect, and also help your client connect for you without them having to be confused. If you have to tell a client, I need you to log into QuickBooks and connect this app, that it doesn't get done very well. And so, you need to make it easy for the client to do the connection so that you can then do the settings. Simple settings and a common user interface for mapping, which is what I'm going to show you, which Bookkeep does. Transparency of actions, having an audit trail, being able to see what was posted, being able to roll it back, being able to adjust it. Never duplicate transactions. I mean, how much time do you spend having to, when you're trying to close the books at the end of the month, having to deal with mistakes from apps? We try and really cut down on that. We don't duplicate with our app, but a lot of these apps do, and sometimes you don't realize it. Provide rich information to go back and forth, and runs in the background. You shouldn't have, when you set up automation, we consider ourselves an automation platform, not a software platform. Automation platform. It does the work for you. And so you should not have to accept every single day of sales from Square into your books. Yet, you write rules in your banking feed so that you don't have to do that every day, which I think could be done better by Intuit as well. But, you want it to do the work for you and then tell you if there's a problem so that you can fix it in real time so that you don't find this problem at the end of the month. Real quick, some of the good before I get into Bookkeep. Melio does a really good job. In fact, they do such a great job, you don't even realize it got integrated. Like it literally is.
Right. People don't even know, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Melio is, I don't know how they did it. I wish I could have that type of integration to QuickBooks. Zenit Auto Review is a really great app for helping you basically review your clients' books. It allows you to make edits within their tool. It's a really neat and well done integration by a group that really understands QuickBooks. And I'll just say the most important feature, Sherry Lee, is it uses our software. She's pretty well known in Canada. She wants to be able to fix it herself. She doesn't, as bookkeepers and accountants, you might be working late on Sunday night. You don't want to have to wait for someone to fix something for you if you're trying to close the books. So I'm going to get into the demo. Bookkeep captures accrual entries from 20 different apps. We have a single user interface. We log and do bulk actions like run bulk history. We will never duplicate. We give you an audit trail. We give you rich information in the accounting system so you don't have to go back to our app or to the source app. And it also always runs in the background. So now let's do the quick demo. We have 10 minutes left, maybe only 5. I'm going to log in. I get logged out automatically here.
But you guys are going to come back because you've actually,
Yeah.
partnered with us for 3 more webinars. So
yeah.
we'll get to see more of you, Jason.
Okay, we'll do some more webinars, but just to do a quick demo, I'm going to show you one of my live wine stores. So this is my account, and in the Bookkeep interface, I should say here, it's designed for accountants. So these are all different clients on our system. A lot of them are bookkeeping clients, and you can jump between clients by quickly doing that, and you can quickly see go to activity page, and here's the entries from my wine store. So like. This is posting to 0, so that's not the best demo right here, but I'll show you. I'll try and show you a different one. And we give you, whether it's Square, whether it's Shopify, whether it's Grubhub, you get a summary journal entry view that you understand. You can see drop downs for sales categories if you want to post those, and you can do the mapping. This interface is going to change a little bit, but mappings are smart. Like if I wanted to search by 4010, I can search 4010. If I want to put this to income, I can do it. And they all work the same, whether it's Square, whether it's PayPal, whether it's whatever, all the mapping screens work exactly the same. So you don't have to learn a new app and how the settings work with Bookkeep. You just connect PayPal and Bookkeep works the same. You connect Square and Bookkeep works exactly the same. And you can look at your activity right there. We use Square in the wine store. So that's what you're looking at here. And you can have multiple integrations in the same view. So let's go to, do I have demo? Do I have the Bookkeep demo, sales demo? I don't have that connected here. Let's see which one I want to show you. I'm going to show you a Shopify store that goes to QuickBooks. So this is also a client, and here you have multiple sales channels. So we also understand that within Shopify, there's multiple sales channels, as well as what we talked about with PayPal, wanting to exclude PayPal. We don't have that feature yet. You can use our PayPal integration, but we are eventually going to build the ability to ignore transactions done on certain tender types if you want to use the PayPal Connect app instead of our app. Here you have Shopify. They sell online, they sell through TapCart, and they have some other options that they sell through. Each one of these can be mapped separately, and each one of these can be mapped with their own classes as well. So you can set separate classes for those journal entries. So then when you come into your activity feed, you can see these different sales channels. That's their online channel, that's their Etsy channel. Here's their TapCart from yesterday. The other thing that we do is, if you want to go to 2021-12 and let's look at online, we give you these fast filter options. Oops, if I spell it right, to be able to quickly scroll down and be like, okay, 31 entries. I see that they all posted. So like if I wanted to verify that everything posted, it's right here. Now, the other thing I want to show you, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but is these links here. What I was telling you about, let's go to that. I'll go to that client first. Unfortunately, like every app, you have to be logged into the client's QuickBooks in order for the links to work. And again, also our app is designed so that you don't have to log into QuickBooks, because QuickBooks logging into QuickBooks Online can be painful.
We all know that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, literally part of it is I log into QuickBooks, getting to the right screen drives me crazy. Luckily, I don't have to live in it, but we're trying to make that easier. So let's go to this client real quick. All right, so here's an example. So these links take you directly to the journal entry that we posted so that you can see what was posted, and you can adjust it. And come on. So here's that entry that that was posted automatically. And what I talked about sending back and forth, here we actually give you the URL that if you have a login to this client's account, which I don't, it'll take you straight to the report that shows you these numbers. So you can verify that from right here in QuickBooks. Soon we'll be attaching also a CSV file of the orders included with sometime this year to also give you all the detail here. But our goal is to give you the detail in QuickBooks so you don't have to go back and forth. And that's just another example of a lot of these apps. They're not going to go to that level of detail when they're building their QuickBooks integration. It's literally, we built a QuickBooks integration, check the box. I can throw transactions in, so I'm done. But we want to make sure that accountants and bookkeepers are happy. So even to that point, here are the sales for Shopify. Here's the date period, the date range, which is essentially a 24-hour period that these sales are from, so that you can clearly see that this was from December 31st, this time period. That kind of information, adding it through, also is part of what we do. And we also allow classing.
If you didn't, and one of the things I think is superior about Bookkeep is that, okay, let's say you didn't split out the shipping, for example, of this daily sales. You could make that change and then update the existing journal entry without having to unpost it and repost it again.
Exactly. So that's the bulk update stuff that you're not going to get in other apps. This mapping screen is taking a little longer, but if you wanted to map, a subcategory here. All right, this is our new interface, so it's a little slow. This particular screen still needs some work, but if I want to map bags to a bags account, in fact, I can actually create a bags account right from here and save that mapping. Okay, that doesn't work, so we haven't tested that yet. This is still our new interface, but I could basically do that mapping and then go back to this page, and I can select, say I just wanted to remap it and redo all of December. I can select all the dates that I want to rerun, and it will resync the new mapping to the existing journal entry. So I'll just do one and show you. I didn't change the mapping, but if I click resync, one of the things, that we understand what accountants deal with, see that little one there? That means that there's been an update to that journal entry, to the same journal entry. So we maintain an audit trail. So when you come in to look at that journal entry, you will see the audit trail, and you can come here and look at audit history. And then you would see that it was originally posted on the 1st, and I just sent the update, which basically was the same thing. But we do maintain an audit trail for you, which of course you want in bookkeeping. And that's all, super important. And this works the same across whether it's PayPal, whether it's Shopify, Square. We do have Grubhub. We are trying to add hundreds of integrations. Right now, these are the ones we have. Some of these are a cannabis point of sale. There's more that are somewhat hidden, and we will build to suit. Yes, we do at eBay. eBay is in the works. If not, I have to check with our product people. Cannabis restaurant is really just Grubhub, but we're trying to add hundreds of apps here so that you only have to come to Bookkeep in order to manage all these connections and your mappings and your jobs. And we're going to even add another page eventually where you can log in every day and see, okay, here's the problems I need to fix across all my clients. And once I fix it, I know I'm done. We really understand what accountants do every day, and give you one place to make those changes. So anyway, I think we're running out of time.
And so who's your ideal client? Would it be the end business owner or the accountant?
No, it's the accountant. It's the accountant. So in fact, I can't show it to you here. It's not in this news, but we do have a way that you can request your client make the connection for you. If they didn't, say your client doesn't give you their login for Square. Sometimes Square, you have to be the owner to connect. You can left click, send them a link. We'll eventually have a special button that you can send the owner an email and say, hey, please connect Square so that I can manage the transactions, which is something, that QuickBooks doesn't always do. That whole process of getting that connectivity is hard. And anyway, I just want to be aware of time. That's really the quick demo. Again, well, if you're interested in the next question, I think our sales team can follow up for more information.
Go ahead and launch that last question if you want to learn more about Bookkeep, because you just kind of tipped the iceberg.
Yeah,
on what
Jason,
potentially you could do.
Yeah, and Jason, I just want to say, by creating Bookkeep and allowing us to learn how to use Bookkeep instead of how to learn how to use Square, how to use ShopKeep, how to use Shopify, how to make changes, having one app that you can map and you can do things consistently among all of your clients and the various third-party apps. I mean, it just saves us so much time. And it saves, trying to contact Square. How do I change these settings, or how do I do that? Or how do, I think it's just a great time saver. It makes us way more efficient to be able to help the clients get the right information. So I'm really glad that you're coming back for more details on this, because it seems like we have a lot of questions and a lot of interest here.
Yeah, we'll do another demo, but you're absolutely right. We want to be the automation platform for accountants, bookkeepers, CPA firms. Really, automation. There's software. QuickBooks is software. We want to be the automation platform that gets the data into the right places, properly booked, properly reconciled, nothing's missing, so that you as the accountant bookkeeper can clean the books up quickly, get reports out, get your client what they need. And so we don't do nonprofits yet. We understand that's a huge problem. We've been talking to some accountants that do nonprofit transactions. There's not a lot of necessarily complexity. Only the donor stuff is something that we don't handle, but we are looking at adding nonprofit apps to our platform as well. Anything that takes payments and does sales, we want to be able to add to Bookkeep. Sometimes that's hard because, like I said, Uber Eats and Grubhub, they won't talk to me. So in the end, we're going to come up with a way to, we actually are going to try and start a movement to get accountants and bookkeepers to, have a place to complain, so that we can get some of these other apps to listen that, that you need to help with data exchange.
The Bookkeep water cooler.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jason, do you have a hard stop, or could we ask you?
I do actually. Okay. I have a call at 1, but let's again, anyone who's interested in a demo, or more information, our sales team can reach out, and we're happy to show you a live demo and answer all your questions. And I think we are working on Wix. It's on the list. I'm just scanning through. I don't know Vagaro. Honeybook, we can put on our list as well. eBay, we do, yes. And Square deposits, yes. We handle the reconciliation of the deposits to sales. We always post your sales summary on your 24-hour period in your local time zone. If it doesn't match to your deposits, that's because your settings are wrong in terms of your batch cutoff on Square. In Shopify, you don't have any control over that. But those are the things that we understand, and you can always talk to our customer care about those issues. And we do help with that. So I'll leave it at that and send it back.
Right. Thanks, Jason, for joining us. I know you have a hard stop, so if you need to drop off while we kind of wrap up here, we certainly will look forward to seeing you back on the QB Power Hour, because it's really exciting stuff. It's like the Sauron's ring of apps, the one app to rule them all type of thing, where accountants and bookkeepers actually have a place to live and work and not be interrupted by an obstacle.
Right.
So
and have someone to talk to.
Coming up on the QB Power Hour.
Thank you.
Take care. Coming up on the next QB Power Hour, we'll be having Path come back. So now that you've got all this free time because you're using Bookkeep, you'll be able to use Path to continue that path to the roadmap to advisory. So hope you join us next Power Hour in 2 weeks on the 18th to talk more about the roadmap to advisory with Pat. Michelle, thanks for joining us. I know you've been kind of you're a trooper. Bad cheeseburger, and you still made it through.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year to everybody. See you soon.
See you next time. We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.